More dramatic video here showing protesters trying to stop agents from detaining someone outside the immigration courthouse yesterday. You saw the woman being dragged by the van as agents tried to escape.
Back up, move back! Get out the way! Get out the way! I got him. Get out the way! Get out the way! I'm against the wall. Get out the way! Get out the way!
Wait a minute. Hey. Jesus.
Get off. You're obstructing a federal arrest. Obstructing a federal arrest. Get on the ground. We're within the break. Get back. Get back. Back up.
Why are you grabbing me? Where? Stop, guys. Where? Yes, but I just... Wait. I have the right for due process, don't I? So why are you grabbing me like this?
Imagine walking into an immigration courthouse thinking you're finally going to have your day in front of a judge. You've been waiting for months, maybe even years, for this chance to explain to the court why you should be allowed to stay in America. But instead of walking out with the answers you've been hoping for, you step out into the hallway and find masked ICE agents waiting to arrest you on the spot.
Get back! Get back!
Hey, okay.
Get back!
Okay, no.
This is the reality of many immigrants in New York City right now. Immigration courts at 26 Federal Plaza, 201 Varick Street, and 290 Broadway have become what many are calling courthouse traps. ICE units are storming the courthouses every single day to grab hundreds of illegal migrants right in front of the judges. Now, the crazy thing is, this is only happening in New York City. ICE is using the same pattern to arrest migrants across Miami, Phoenix, Dallas, Los Angeles, Chicago, Buffalo, Seattle, in fact, all over the country. So now, everyone is asking, is that even legal? What legal authority does ICE have to grab migrants from inside the courtroom? And on the other hand, why are these migrants now demanding due process before their removal, when some of them actually ignored due process when they entered the country illegally? So, what's going on now is a coordinated tactic ordered by the Department of Homeland Security, and here's how it works. Inside the courtroom, the government prosecutor tells the judge that they want to dismiss the case against a migrant. Now, at first, that sounds like good news, right? But the truth is, once the judge agrees, the migrant instantly loses the temporary protection that came with having an active case in court. And that's the key detail, because without that protection, ICE has full authority to make the arrest right away. So, when the person leaves the courtroom, officers are already waiting at the door, ready to put them in cuffs. Now, while this started in New York, ICE is using the same tactics to raid multiple immigration courts across the country, and we have real-life cases. Father Brian Strasburger is a Jesuit priest who serves migrants on both sides of the southern border. So, he recently attended an immigration court hearing in Harlingen, Texas, and what he witnessed that day inspired him to write an article for American Magazine. In that article, he told the story of a Nicaraguan man named Carlos.
He's been in the country for 5 years. He's fleeing persecution in Nicaragua, where he was politically active against the government.
Carlos was in court that morning to prove his case and get a fair shot at his asylum claims. But everything took an unexpected turn when the Department of Homeland Security asked the court to dismiss his case. But Carlos suspected foul play right away.
And so, despite Carlos's protestations, saying, "I'd like to continue my case, I have a case for asylum, I'd like to present it in a court of law," the immigration judge accepted the motion from the Department of Homeland Security and said, "Your case has now been closed."
So now, Carlos was walking out of the courtroom, trying to make sense of what just happened, but what he didn't know was that the worst was yet to happen.
Outside the courtroom, there were 2 ICE agents waiting for him for exactly this reason. They had their faces covered with masks, they called him aside, took his possessions, and handcuffed him and placed him in an unmarked vehicle to put him in a form of fast-track deportation called expedited removal.
He now sits in detention, waiting for what's called a credible fear interview, but he has to do that from behind bars, and he has no chance to prepare his case with a lawyer. Then, there's also the case of a 28-year-old named Juan Serrano, who also showed up for his own day in court in Miami. To his surprise, the judge told him he was free to go, but he didn't know that was a setup, and the moment he stepped outside, ICE agents were waiting, and he was cuffed and placed in a van with several others detained that same day. So now, everyone is asking, why target immigration courts? Well, according to ICE, the answer is safety. Now, think about it. In a courthouse, people are unarmed because they've already gone through security checks. They're usually calm, dressed neatly, and trying to create a good impression in front of the judge. That means officers don't have to chase them down in neighborhoods, risk confrontations in front of their families, or get into dangerous situations while trying to arrest them. Agents also know exactly when and where the person will be, so that means no guesswork and no wasted manpower or resources. For law enforcement, it's the cleanest and most predictable way to make an arrest, and that makes a whole lot of sense. But on the other hand, many migrants and their lawyers see this as a betrayal. Imagine walking into court hoping for a real chance to prove your case, only to walk back out into an ambush. In the waiting rooms, families watch helplessly as loved ones are bundled straight from the courthouse into unmarked vans. And outside, the tension is immediate as protesters gather, chanting and blocking vans, trying to disrupt the process.
An unusual scene at LA's historic MacArthur Park. Military trucks and a mounted unit moved through the park, sending people scattering.
And we're like, what is this? I felt like a war zone.
I don't know why is trying to escape people all the time. I don't understand. I don't like it.
Within minutes, Mayor Karen Bass was also there. The agents were wearing vests that read Border Patrol, but they didn't appear to question or detain anyone.
This is the underground scene Trump's ICE is attacking, not MS-13 hideouts or high-ranking sicarios, but swap meat stalls and taco carts. And with quotas to meet, every one of these raids gets them closer to their 3,000 a day target. And when local leaders speak up, Trump's circle has a plan for them too. Remember how Tom Homan threatened LA Mayor Karen Bass.
You cross that line, it's a felony to knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien. It's a felony to impede law enforcement from doing their job.
Do you think that the mayor of LA is doing that?
If she crossed that line, we'll ask DOJ to prosecute. Do I think she's crossed the line? I don't think she's crossed the line yet. But I'm telling you, the warning we're sending is we're not going to tolerate people attacking our officers.
As if trying to protect the innocents from violent arrests means harboring undocumented residents. Turns out, these aren't idle threats. During a protest in downtown LA, ICE arrested David Huerta, the president of California's SEIU, one of the largest labor unions in the state.
He was sent to the hospital with injuries and he's been detained.
Is crime standing in the street with a sign? And speaking of detention, reporters are now getting footage of the grim centers.
These are basements that have no restrooms, they have no sanitary conditions for the people. There's not enough food and water for the people.
It's all part of reframing dissent as criminal, label a protest an insurrection, and suddenly deploying the National Guard or Marines means restoring order. Paint union leaders as obstructionists, and jailing them looks like enforcing the law. This is the authoritarian playbook our generation has been warned about in history class. Blur the line between political opposition and criminal activity until they're the same thing. That way, every protester is a threat to public safety, every immigrant ally is aiding criminals, and every local official who resists is breaking the law. And it's working through intimidation. If they can put a union leader in the hospital, what happens to an undocumented organizer with no platform? Here's how ICE is tearing at the Constitution itself. At this point, legal experts aren't just concerned. No, they're issuing evacuation warnings.
Experts say the constitutional crisis is here now.
The Trump administration deporting hundreds of men without a trial.
A massive purge at the FBI
to make people afraid of speaking out against it.
The combination of mass raids, military deployments, and wholesale judge firings is starting to look like a stress test for how far you can bend the Constitution before it snaps.
And soon you're using the word freedom, but what you're talking about is authoritarianism.
That's not hyperbole. Dozens of judges have been fired with 3-sentence emails, while ICE adds thousands of new agents. The backlog is 3.5 million cases, but hearings are vanishing. Without a judge, there's no due process. Without due process, the Bill of Rights is just paper. One historian of totalitarianism, who has studied dictators for 25 years, put it like this.
The lesson of 1933 is you get out sooner rather than later.
She says she's leaving the U.S. entirely.
If you hate our country, if you're not happy here, you can leave. And that's what I say all the time. That's what I said in a tweet, which I guess some people think is controversial. A lot of people love it, by the way. A lot of people love it. But if you're not happy in the U.S., If you're complaining all the time, very simply, you can leave. You can leave right now.
And the rhetoric seals it. Trump calls this the golden age of America, while his administration quietly redefines freedom to mean obedience.
The golden age of America has only just begun.
If this is 1933 in slow motion, then LA is the rehearsal, and the rest of the country is the stage.
They're coming out. They're coming out. They're coming out.
So, all of these people believe that ICE is violating due process by making these arrests. Their argument is that if someone shows up in court, sits in front of a judge, and follows every instruction, then that person deserves to be treated fairly and should not be harassed or arrested by any federal agency. Now, some immigrant attorneys and advocacy groups are backing that criticism with their own legal arguments.
Inside immigration courts, that's creating a climate of fear, not just for immigrants, but for judges and lawyers as well.
I think there is a valid fear amongst the immigration community of attorneys and legal service providers that we are putting ourselves at risk, putting our careers at risk, our license at risk, if we're too vocal about the work that we do.
That's because the White House has targeted immigration attorneys. In March, President Donald Trump issued an executive order accusing immigration lawyers of coaching their clients to lie in asylum petitions. The president then ordered the U.S. Attorney General to sanction attorneys who engage in what he called frivolous and unreasonable litigation.
And the language in that executive order was very threatening, that by helping someone apply for asylum, we're violating our ethical rules as attorneys, and that we'll be investigated and could be charged and lose our licenses if we continue to help people seeking asylum.
Many of them point out that immigrants are not even guaranteed free legal representation in immigration court, unlike in criminal cases. So, this means some of them walk into the courtroom without a lawyer, without knowing the technical details of their cases, and without anyone there to push back when a government lawyer suddenly requests the dismissal of their case. For many immigrants, it now feels like they're being punished not for breaking the rules, but for following them by showing up for their day in court. That's why various advocate groups are helping them to fight back. And now, what started as an immigration crackdown has landed in federal court. So, some advocate groups, including organizations like the National Immigrant Justice Center and American Gateway, have filed a class action lawsuit in Washington, D.C., representing immigrants from countries like Venezuela, Cuba, Ecuador, Guinea, Liberia, and even the Chechen Republic. Some of their cases had either been dismissed by judges or were still technically active, but that didn't stop ICE from taking them away. Some were political dissidents who had fled regimes back home. Others were LGBTQ activists who faced violence in their countries. One Venezuelan man living with HIV was taken after his court hearing in New York City, even though his case was still pending. Another man from Ecuador, a gay rights advocate, was deported within a month of his case being dismissed. He begged for more time to file his asylum paperwork, but the judge's dismissal cleared the way for ICE, and now he's back in hiding in Ecuador. Then there are the family stories that cut even deeper. Parents are being handcuffed and thrown inside unmarked vans right in front of their kids.
Crying out, "I don't want to die in Honduras," an emotional mother taken by ICE agents at immigration court Thursday. Another mother also placed in the same van. Her husband says she has no prior criminal history.
According to Father Brian Strasburger, some migrants are now so terrified by what they're seeing that they're asking for virtual hearing to avoid the risk of being arrested in person.
I get messages all the time now from migrants who have upcoming court dates who are terrified to go to court. I know a young single mom with two kids who had an upcoming court date in late July in North Carolina, and she was messaging me daily, "Father Brian, I'm so afraid to go to court. I'm so afraid to go to court. I've heard what's happening. Can you get the read? Is this happening in the court I'm going to? Should I not go to court?"
The priest believes that the lady truly wanted to go through the legal process, but she was just terrified of walking into a situation where she'd be taken away from her kids. But the thing is, not showing up in court is also another trap, a very dangerous one, because if someone skips their court date, the judge can issue what's called an in absentia removal order. That order gives ICE the power to immediately move forward with deportation without another hearing if they ever stop the person in the future. In other words, whether they show up or not, you'll still end up in trouble. But the question is, what legal backing does ICE have to make these arrests? Are the judges working with them, crime? And is this even legal? So, many people in New York thought the Protect Our Courts Act, or POCA, would shield immigrants from exactly this kind of crackdown. That law, passed in 2020 after years of advocacy, was designed to stop ICE from making civil arrests at state and city courthouses. It meant that if you had a hearing in criminal court, family court, or any other state-level court, ICE couldn't just wait outside to grab you. But here's the catch. POCA does not apply to federal immigration courts, and that's where these raids are happening.
Just stay back for a minute. We're going to be busy here, okay? You're not going to just make the delivery right now. Loading? Are you loading? Yeah, that's what that was. Come here! Hey! Come this way! This way! This way! This way! We got a photo on these.
So technically, ICE isn't breaking that law at all. The same thing goes for New York City's sanctuary laws. Those rules can only stop local agencies, like the NYPD or the Department of Corrections, from helping ICE. But since ICE is a federal agency, they don't need local help to carry out these operations. And that's why advocate groups are saying that it feels like a loophole, because city laws were made to keep everyone within the borders of that state safe, including the migrants. Yet, federal agents can still walk right into an immigration court lobby and arrest people without violating any single local law. So now, while the sanctuary states are fighting to protect their laws, the feds are also claiming they are enforcing federal laws because immigrants who illegally entered the country within the last 2 years are subject to expedited removal. But as you guys probably know, they're not just doing this to enforce federal laws. There's a much larger political strategy behind it.
ICE says these arrests are a part of the Trump administration's plans to reverse former President Biden's so-called catch-and-release program.
So, you guys remember that part of President Trump's campaign promises was to carry out the largest mass deportation effort in U.S. history, and now it's very easy to see how these courthouse arrests are one of the ways to make that happen. So, by dismissing cases and removing temporary protections, the government says it is clearing clogged court dockets filled with what they call frivolous asylum claims. Even Trump himself has said that, with a backlog of more than 4 million immigration cases, it is simply not possible to give everyone a trial. However, immigration attorneys and activists think that's still not an excuse to neglect due process. They argue that when migrants were first let into the country, they were promised a chance to argue their case in court. For them, dismissing cases right before a hearing and then arresting people feels like pulling the rug out from under the very system that's supposed to deliver justice. One New York attorney described watching her client's case dismissed in New York and said she saw the courtroom doors swing open, only to find ICE agents waiting in the hallway to take him away.
I feel like we portraying people who's here with credible fears. Just knowing his story, I feel like I let him down.
So, she's against punishing people who were supposedly doing the right thing by showing up in court. She believes that doing that undermines the entire system. But one thing these attorneys have failed to admit is that some of their clients also neglected due process when they entered this country illegally. So, the question is, if someone entered the country through the back door, why should the government have to go through due process to remove them? Please feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth videos like this. Meanwhile, click on any of the cards on your screen right now to watch more of our videos.